Hello, my name is Dr. Sidney Freeman Jr., and this is Communiversity, a program that focuses in on life skills that will help Black young adults. This program was envisioned by Minister Ronnie Vanderhorst, who had a focus and who has a focus on empowering young African Americans. We also want to show honor to the North Pacific Union Conference of Seventh-day Adventists as they have funded this program. And with that, I would like to introduce my special guest, Dr. Jaime Kowlessar, who is the president and founder of Raise Your Voice, a consulting firm, and also someone who has a program that's called Justice Speaks, which is a program where an initiative where he is going out and speaking, preaching, and training around justice and social impact around our community. And so we are so excited that he is with us today. He's going to be talking about a very important topic around how to connect with friends. As adults, a lot of times we struggle to have friends. Our parents, when we were younger, would put us together with play dates and things like that. But as we get older, it gets a little more challenging as we are growing in our careers and building families and things like that. So we're so glad that he's here to share with us today. How you doing, Jaime?
Man, I'm good. I'm good, man. Glad to be alive, man. Thanks for having me on this man, prestigious program, Communiversity. The name just speaks for itself, right? And how we impact and engage the next generation and give them tools and tips to help them navigate through life. So I'm excited to be here, man. Thank you for having me, Sid. Appreciate it.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So with that, thank you so much. My first question for you is, how can someone make new friends as an adult outside of school and work?
Man, that's a good question. So whenever I think about like the word friends, this verse in the Bible, I don't always remember it, but it's in Proverbs, right? And it talks about, I don't remember the chapter and verse, but I know that it says for a person to I guess in order to make friends, one has to show themselves friendly, right? For a person to make it friends, they have to show themselves friendly. And I always take that into consideration that when it comes to making new friends, that sometimes you have to put yourself in spaces with people who are like-minded, that that you can interact and build relationships with. And I think by time you leave college, hopefully you kind of have an idea of who you want to be and what you want to do. So you kind of move in, different spaces to build relationships and networking, so that you can make new friends, right? I think that's a helpful way to think about making new friends.
Yeah. So with that, what are some of the main qualities that you should look for in developing a friendship?
Man, I think number one, being with somebody where you can be yourself. I think anytime you try to build a relationship and you're trying to act like something that you're not, obviously they're not going to like you for that. They're going to like you for who you're trying to be. So I think authenticity is key, right? I think also too, when it comes to making new friends, also like-mindedness. And I'll say this too. Well, maybe like-mindedness, yeah, but I also think people who can make you better. I think you should be aspiring to be around people or to build relationships with people that push you and motivate you to be better. Not in a comparison kind of level and not in a not in a jealousy kind of level, but kind of saying like, yo, like you said, right? Like you're a man with a PhD. You're a man, you're married, you're doing amazing and big things. You inspire me, right? So I want to be around that inspiration to rub off on me to motivate me to do better. If your friends bring you down, or the people that you with lower your standard, then I think then that's a red flag. So you look for people who are genuine, people who are like-minded, people who are goal-oriented, mission-oriented. I think those are some of the good values you could look for in building new relationships.
So with that, and thank you. I'm inspired by you also.
Appreciate it.
As you said that, I thought about TD Jakes when he talked about comrades and confidants, and he has kind of these different levels of friendships and relationships. And I hear a lot about being an associate versus being a friend. Could you talk about kind of the difference? And a lot of people say, I have a lot of friends. And is that good, or is it, or should you focus in on a small group of friends and have a lot of associates? Just kind of your perceptions on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. So my wife and I, we were talking to our daughters about that, and we had to grow and we had to learn to come to a place to understand that this word friend is thrown around pretty loosely these days, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we just call everybody our friend. And we have to identify to our girls, there's some people that are friends and there's some people that are associates, right? And I think like a friend is somebody that you can depend on. A friend is somebody that you can turn to for advice, can challenge you. And I think that's another part of your friend circle. Like you need somebody in your circle that can challenge you as well and call you out and hold you accountable. Now, all the people that you call friends ain't gonna do that, right?
Yeah.
When you are down and out, all them people, like, don't think just because you got 2,000 followers on Instagram, those are your friends, right? And I think that we should definitely have a core. I think that there should be a crew. I think that that core should be those people that you can be vulnerable in front of, and then also those people that can call you out. Like you need to have at least one friend that's gonna hit you up and be like, yo, what you doing? You know, like, bro, what you did right there, that wasn't it. You need people like that. You don't need, as I would say, you know, with the case of, I'm just gonna throw this out there, the case of Kanye West, where I feel like he's surrounded by a lot of yes men and yes people. You need people in your group that's gonna say, nah, that ain't it, bro. It's not working. So I do agree that we need to be very careful about how we throw around this word friend, and how we have as associates or people that we talk to. Like you can be cool with them, but if you ain't calling them or they ain't calling you, you know, late at night and stuff like that to talk about things, then I would probably push back a little bit on that idea of that's my friend.
Yeah. So that just brought something up to my mind about kind of boundaries related to friendship. So you have some. So what I've learned is that there's kind of this, as you get older, people are trying to balance their own families and work responsibilities and being busy themselves and making time for friendships. And a lot of times your friendships kind of go to the wayside. Could you talk about navigating the importance of having boundaries as friends, but also prioritizing friendships so that those things can be maintained and flourish?
Yeah, so good, real good question. Life be lifing, right? And one of the
Yeah.
things about especially navigating friendships after 30, navigating friendships, and not even just after 30, just navigating friendships after a career, after getting married, after having children. And I think there's two things: that if that person or whoever that individual is a friend, they'll respect the new milestones in your life, right? Like they'll respect the fact that, okay, you just got married, you have children, so your time is not the same time that we had before. So a friend will honor that and not get jealous or not be like, yo, where you at? Things type of things like that. But then also too, I think it's important that as a friend that you are intentional about cultivating the relationship that you built. And that means carving out some time to talk, carving out some time to hang out. carving out some time to just catch a movie or things or anything like that. And even if when you find yourself in a new space, like we're in a much more connected world that I'm assuming you and I grew up with, that
Mhm.
you know, if we move to if we were friends here and we moved to a different state, you know, you would have to plan to see each other. But now we have FaceTime, now we got Zoom so we could stay connected. But
Mhm.
all of those things still take intentionality,
Yeah.
still take, you know, a concerted effort to make sure that we're harnessing and developing this relationship. Now, when it comes to making new friends, obviously that's going to have to be intentional on your part too. But I think that you're going to have to be very strategic about, because I think like at a certain age when you're adulting, you have to be strategic about what spaces you put yourself in, and you know, and strategic about how you cultivate and develop relationships. Because when you're in college or when you're in high school, it's easier, right? At least in my opinion, because we're together, we sleeping in the same dorm, we
Yeah.
taking the same classes, you know, all of that stuff. So I get to observe you as a person. Matter of fact, I get to observe how you move with other people. So that helps
Right.
me know, you know, like, okay, I can rock with you. Now, when you're an adult and you got your career and stuff, you got to be a little bit slower and a little bit more intentional, a little bit more focused on what kind of space do I want to put myself in, and who am I? Can I be a friend to somebody new, or and build a new relationship?
I
Yeah,
like that you said that. I actually have two questions, but I'll go with this first
yeah,
one,
yeah.
which is kind of that intentionality of developing friendships in practical ways. If I'm someone who just got I'm 22 and I just got out of college, and my experience has been, yes, it's been in the dorm. I've made those types of friends, but now I may or may not be going to grad school, but I'm in a new environment. How can I be intentional about making friends in a new city, a new environment that I find myself in?
That's good, man. So I'll give you my an example from me. You know, I love community engagement, activism, and social justice. That's I breathe and live that. I enjoy that. So what I did was I started looking for nonprofit organizations and started going to uh events that were talking about topics that I was interested in. And from
Mhm.
doing that, I was able to make a really, really good friend. His name is Edwin Robinson. He's a forgot what denomination he is. He's not Seventh-day Adventist, but we connect on because we started seeing each other at these different community engagement events.
Mhm.
And that we just saw from seeing each other, and then we just started talking to each other. And then it turned out to he and I started partnering and doing stuff in Texas. So if you're young and you're 22 years old and you just graduated from college, um, put yourself in the spaces and places that you find interesting to you. And I
Mhm.
think because there's another community that's out there that have your same interest. I'll even use another example of outside of community activism and engagement. If you know me, if you follow me on Instagram or you see me around, you know that clothes and style and fashion is one of the things that I love. And so
Mhm.
sometimes when I'm in some stores, department stores, I'll talk to a sales associate. And in one particular store, I was talking to this young man. He's about, I'd say about maybe 10 or 10 to 12 years younger than me. And we just exchanged Instagrams, and then we were talking like that, looking at each other's pictures. And we've been talking off and on, you know, and I consider him as somebody that I can be cool with. And that it turned out that we found out we knew some more people that we had in common. And then when
Oh
I go
wow.
to New York, we'll sit down and we'll have lunch and we'll connect like that. So I think it's always about, and that's what I mean about being strategic and focused, putting
Mhm.
yourself in the spaces and places around people that interest that share your interest, and then you'll just start developing some relationships that you can cultivate that could turn into, you know, whatever you or and how God wants it to turn out.
So as you talk about that, I've been thinking about how marriage and friendships work, and in particular, and I know that you and your wife on your program talk about some of these issues, but in particular, I have found, having been married 16 years, a lot of times uh, my my friends need to be someone that my wife can kind of also vibe with. So could you talk about navigating friendships and marriage, who you hang out with and how that becomes a little different, or even if you're dating, you're seriously courting somebody and they're not really feeling some of the people in which you may want to engage with.
Yeah, good question. And that, I think that goes back to me, and I forgot to make this point. I think that goes back to the boundary kind of thing that we
Mm-hmm.
were mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
And so if, you know, I would just say all of my friends, they respect my wife and they're cool, right? They get along. The newer friends that I've made, and it's an interesting dynamic. I feel like the newer friends that I've made, because they have a respect and we have a mutual respect for each other, then
Mm-hmm.
I can see that they'll have a respect for my wife as well. That if I bring them in the same space, then they'll be, I think it'll be cordial. I haven't had an
Mm-hmm.
experience where there was somebody that I am friends with that my wife was like, keep that person away from me. I don't want to see
Uh-huh.
them. Don't get
Yeah.
them. Because I think naturally we just attract people that are akin to each other. Now, on the
Mm-hmm.
flip side, to somebody, if I was going to give advice to your question, I think that when you get married, your spouse becomes the number one person in your life, right? And I think that if you have a friend that your spouse doesn't necessarily mesh with or gel with, I don't think you need to cut that person off if you get along with that person. But I think it does need to be a conversation with you and your spouse to consider or to talk about, how do we keep a boundary? Because your friend is your friend. That's what y'all do. But I just don't want that over here. And I think that's all about, and I think that also caters to how much of a friend are you to your spouse, right? How much of a relationship
Right.
do you have with your spouse that you can respect your spouse to say, like, I'm gonna keep these two relationships separate because I still honor my spouse and I still respect them. But also, too, that if it gets to a point or a place where it's making my spouse uncomfortable, that I'm hanging out with this person because of some of the things that they do, because of some of the things that they're engaged in, because they just trifling, then I think
Yeah.
that's also a conversation that you need to have with that friend to say, like, yo, at the end of the day, we cool and all of that, but I'm gonna limit as much time as I am, with you and stuff like that. Because the other thing too, right? Like there's that saying, birds of a feather flock together. And
Yeah.
then there's also the notion of, I had a situation where there was a particular person that was my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not a close friend, but an associate, someone I was cool with. And this individual was sleeping around with a lot of young ladies, right? And it came back to me that since you are cool with that person, I
Uh,
assumed that you were doing the same thing too,
right.
So, and I think that's important when navigating friendships. Like, what are your friends are doing? Because I don't do that. I wasn't doing that. I was
Right.
straight and narrow, but they associated me with that because I was cool with that person. When I was just cool with that person because you could come through to my apartment in college, you could hang out, you could chill. That's it. Our conversations never went into talking about extra curricular affairs. I'll put it like that, right? So I think there's something also to the notion of you have to be mindful and have your own boundaries in regards to who you associate yourself with and what you associate yourself with. And that if your spouse, sometimes I know maybe you could testify to this too, Sid, that your spouse can see things that you don't.
Oh,
You
definitely.
got to listen to your spouse sometimes and be like, like all right, I'm gonna do something different now. But I think boundaries are important with keeping your friends separate. But I know I can speak for myself that most of my friends are like-minded, and I
Mhm.
know that I choose to put myself around like-minded people who I know will always that I can bring them around my family and not be worried about them, how they're going to act or behave.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to switch gears now, and I'm thinking about this loneliness pandemic,
Yeah.
as it were. We're finding out more and more that all of us, I was going to say young people, but I was going to say all of us are navigating feelings of loneliness. So we're more connected via social media and other technology. However, people are feeling more isolated nonetheless. There are some people that will be in a crowded room and feel alone. Could you talk about ways in which people can mitigate their feelings of loneliness? Just yeah, how can they navigate their feelings of loneliness?
Yeah, yeah. Man, the world that we live in, I'm glad you brought up social media. I'm discovering that a lot of the generation, what is that? The generation underneath us,
Mhm.
the millennial community, the Gen Alpha, whatever, I've observed that they have trouble talking to each other face to face. It's like they don't know how to connect or how to communicate. And that's because all their communication is behind devices. It's texting, right? It's short and it's just through pictures and it's through filters too, right? Because what you see on social media is not really that person. Sometimes it's an added filter or whatever. And I think that's creating this epidemic or pandemic of loneliness that
Mm,
we've lost the ability to be able to connect on a not a spiritual level, but just on a personal level
mhm.
outside of the screen. I was having a conversation with my wife, and I was like, man, I remember as a kid, it was punishment to stay inside the house. You
Right.
wanted to go out. These kids today, they're like, I'm fine with staying in the house by myself, right?
Yeah.
And I know that as humans, we do need interaction. We do need to be able to connect and to talk to people. I think for that person that's dealing with loneliness, it's going to go back to what I was talking about earlier
Mhm.
about finding what is your passion, finding what you're interested in, and then going on Eventbrite or various spaces to figure out where are those things that I can find myself to put myself in a place where I don't have to be by myself all the time. I think church is a great place too, that if you have a faith background, that sometimes, going to church, you can find communities there and be able to connect with people and start relationships. But then I also think too, maybe there's some self-evaluation that some people need to do. Maybe
Mhm.
if you suffer from social awkwardness, or maybe if you have some proclivities or things that, you know, finding a therapist and talking to somebody to work through some issues can actually also help too, but help you get to navigate the skills of how to break out of loneliness and to break into forming relationships that will edify and that will build you up. So, the I think it's a scary time that we're in right now, in
Mhm.
regards to of how social media driven we are and how awkward it is for us because I was at worship and we did a teen service and we've got all the teens in a room, but they're all looking at their phones.
Right. Yeah.
Like, and you
Mhm.
have to force them to put it down. I think, man, we probably need to even create spaces where you come inside, man, put your phone inside of this little hat, this little
Oh
box,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and we gonna make you talk. But loneliness sometimes is a deeper issue than just on the surface, and there are different ways. But um, finding your interests, finding who you are, discovering who you are, what you are about, and what you want to do. I think those are the first steps in regard to breaking out of that and finding community.
Wonderful. I'm thinking about your advice that you just gave. So let's say I'm I'm 23. I've gone on Eventbrite. I found a uh, event I want to go to. I
Mhm.
go to an event. I I met one or two people that I think could be really cool. We talk a little bit casually, whatever. Had a good time. Um, how do I transition that into a a friendship, and that it's and make it feel organic, and that it's not. I think that people can. I think one of the anxieties could be right is
Mhm.
that it can feel like it's one sided. People don't want to
Yeah.
feel like they're in one sided relationship. So if they don't want to be the one always saying, let's go to lunch or let's go to the movies or whatever. So how can someone create kind of that mutual uh transitioning from an acquaintance to a friendship, but in kind of a natural way? I know that's a
Yeah.
big question, but
No, it's a good question. And like, how do you develop a friendship in an organic way where it's just
right,
natural, not forced, right? Like it's not like
right.
me doing all the work. Man, I kind of think of it like 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 if you trying to date somebody, right? Like if you
Mhm.
trying to get with this girl or get with this guy, there's going to be cues and there's going to be signs. I think that if you are the only one that's like always saying like, yo, you want to go to this movie, yo, you want to go to this event, yo, you want to do this, and it's not reciprocated where it's like um they're inviting you to stuff or they're it doesn't feel like it's balanced, right? And there's a
Right.
few scenarios I'll go through, right? That it doesn't feel like it's balanced, then I think maybe that person is indirectly telling you that um this relationship is not going to go anywhere, right? Like if you're the
Right.
one that's doing all the work. But then also too, right? There can be some people who are just really introvert and they don't know where to go or what to do. And but you could call and be like, "Hey, this is happening down here." And they're like, "All right, I'll go." And you're the one that's always finding stuff to do. Then I think then that's okay because you know that person's personality after a few interactions with them. You know that they do want to chill, they do want to hang out. They just don't know what to do, so they're not going to take the initiative, right? So you're kind of like, all right, I see value in this. I want to continue to cultivate it. So I think those are two scenarios where you have to be very careful, have discernment. And man, I'm not going to block out prayer, right? I think prayer is
Mm,
important, like praying about this new friendship, praying about who this person that I just met and hanging out with this person. And I think that once it's important that the relationship is growing organically and it's not like one person taking from the other or another person doing too much, and you could read the signs that it seems that this person is chill, this person wants to go out, this person is like, yo, they're great conversation and things like that, then I think that is good. But it's going to take time to build that. It doesn't start
yeah.
overnight. It's going to take like a few months, maybe a few weeks in order to get to where it needs to be. But if it's one-sided and you're doing everything and you calling them, they're not calling you back, it seems like you're pulling teeth.
That's cool.
You don't want to you don't want to push that any further or try to force that in a sense.
You said something important. I have a friendship that one of my best friendships. He's not a caller, right?
Mhm.
But if I call, he's going to pick up, and if he doesn't pick up, he will shoot me a text. Are you okay? Everything good? I'm in the middle of something, but I'm gonna call you. And so that makes me feel so good that
Yeah.
even if he's not a caller, I'm a caller, right?
Yeah.
Uh, that that you have somebody that cares about you enough to say, "Listen, I'll call you back. I'll call you
Right.
back," or "Are you okay?" And so friendship, so reciprocation can look different. Some people are just not. They may not like the text, right?
Mhm.
And they like to talk, or vice versa,
Yeah.
whatever it is. just because the person may not communicate in the same way that you do doesn't mean that the friendship cannot blossom and grow.
Yeah, yeah, same to me. So, it's funny you said that. I am not a talker. I am not I'll do this. I am not a phone talker. I do
Gotcha.
not like to talk on the phone. I'd prefer to text. But if I see you face
Mm,
to face, I'm gonna sit down and have dinner and have lunch with you and talk. Like we could do it. But it's just something about the phone that
wow.
we don't work well. It's like I don't pick it up. But my friends know that about me, and people that meet me know that about me. And like you said, so Sid, if you call me and I don't pick up, that doesn't mean that I'm not trying to talk to you or I don't like you. But I know
Hmm.
that if you text me, I'll text you back and then I'll meet you somewhere and then we can sit down. But it takes time to learn people. Because
Right.
if you just say one time you call somebody and say this is a new relationship that you just started developing and you call that person and they don't pick up, I don't think it's I think it's premature to jump to the conclusion like, oh, this person don't want to chill. This person don't want to be my friend.
Right.
You got to give it some time. And once you understand and learn different people, then you kind of like, okay, they just don't like to talk on the phone, but they'll text me. And the fact
Hmm.
that with your friend say that they showed the care where it's like, I didn't pick up, but I'm texting you back. Are you good? To make
Hmm.
sure you're good. And then if you say, yo, I'm not good, then I'm sure they'll pick up the phone and they'll have a conversation with you.
Yeah, I just think respect is so key
Dude.
uh, to relationships
Yeah.
that we want to see blossom and grow.
Yeah.
And then one more question before we kind of round out this conversation. um, Navigating ghosting, right? So that is something I hadn't thought of that until right now. But there is a lot of ghosting now where someone it may be a call or it may be whatever it is, but people just stop communicating, and it can lead to kind of frustration on the person who is trying to maintain that relationship or that friendship, and the other side just goes. So could you talk about um, how people should handle if they want to get out of a relationship, right? And how to deal with someone who has ghosted a person. How do you
Yeah.
deal with those things?
Yeah, man. Ghosting, yo. That is so man, that's so difficult. Friendship breakups, I feel like are harder than relationship breakups. Because at least
Mm,
with like a boyfriend girlfriend breakup, you kind of know why you broke up, right? Like we
yeah.
just stopped liking each other. Or I don't like that you do this. With a friendship breakup, it's a little bit more difficult because how do you break up with a friend, right? Like how do you how do you how do you tell somebody like, like this isn't working or this isn't happening or I just don't want to do this no more? Usually it just ends up, people just grow apart and they just disappear. And so to your question about navigating someone who has ghosted you or
Mhm.
navigating a relationship where it's like the friendship isn't working, it's not cool. I think it's a form of I think it's important and also a form of respect to be able to tell somebody that I didn't like what you did or
Mm,
I've observed a few things over some time and I don't rock with that, or I don't agree with how you handle certain situations or how you treat some people. And to have that courageous conversation to say that if that continues, then I don't know if this is gonna I don't want to associate myself with something like that. And I think it's gonna be take a lot of courage to do that because it's not easy
yeah.
sometimes to be confrontational. But I think it's actually important to do that because maybe some people need to hear that, right? Maybe some people need to know like, yo, how you treat people is not cool or what you do with this, that's not cool, and that's not the kind of person that I want to build a relationship with, because that may in turn may make that person say, you know what, maybe I do I never knew I acted like that or stink in front of people, right? Is that accountability? Or they might just be like, well, this is who I am. And if you don't like it, then whatever. And I think so. I think that it's important that for when it comes to friendships, when it comes to certain things that are done, to create that boundary and accountability. And I'm going to say this now, easier
Mhm.
said than done. I'm going to say that I'm going to be vulnerable with me right now. Like, I rarely have conversations like that, because even with the situation that I brought up with the with the friend that
Mhm.
was messing around, I actually never even said anything about what was said to me about that, because we weren't in the same space. This came back to me years later. So it
Mhm.
wasn't like we were in the same space, but I never went back to call and be like, yo, bro, they're saying this, or this is what was said about me. Is it true or not?
Mhm.
So I think though that it's easier said than done, but it needs to be done, because sometimes if you're truly a friend, there's some things that your friends may not know that are being said about them that you should say something. And then sometimes there needs to be also that accountability piece where it's like, if you continue to do this, then we can't continue to be friends, because it can tear you. It can, because at the same point, at some point, you have to set your boundaries and protect yourself, right? And protect what
Yeah.
you want to be. So when it comes to breaking up with friendships, I think it's difficult to have those courageous conversations, but they need to be said, and that let the chips fall where they fall. But at least you can know that you didn't just disappear and just ghost them, because that's going to create a whole different narrative as well.
I think what you're saying is so powerful, and one of the things that transparently I've had to check myself on is how am I interacting with people, and am I interacting in such a way that they feel good once they have left my presence,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I had a situation I've talked about in other settings where I as a professor, and I have my doctorate, I want to show people how smart I am, and how
Right.
we're kind of debating. And so there was one interaction with someone where it was like, I'm the expert on this, and I really was was uh was really trying to show my academic acumen and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I won the argument, but I saw the person deflated.
Mm.
And so I had to begin to ask myself, was it worth it to win the argument, to win the debate in such a way that that person may never want to be in my presence, because I, in some ways, was trying to make the person feel small,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so one of the things that I'm trying to be more conscious about, and I've even shared this with my friends, is that I want, how do people leave when they were in my presence? Do they feel like it was great to have been in Sydney's presence? It was great. I
Mhm.
feel better about myself being in his presence. I have a friend at Morehouse College, a professor friend. Whenever he introduces me to everybody. He's a professor too, but
Yeah.
introduces me to everyone, and he goes down the line of my credentials and how great I am, and my wife, and all those things. And you feel so good
Yeah.
that this person honors you every time he is around other people. How do I do the same for other people that I'm around? Am I only
Yeah.
just talking about myself and my issues and my things, which are important, and people may want to hear that too? But how do
Mhm.
I create an environment in which that person feels better having interacted with me? And I think that's important as we get older, that we're not just taking from our friendships, but we're giving. And they don't have to
Yeah.
be just your friends. They could be people that you associate with.
Yeah. Yeah. You said it, Sydney. Like, if you're networking, then you want to build there. If you're networking, then you might want to build relationships that are transactional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, I'm talking to you because I want to use your connection to connect me to different places. And there's some people that just want transactional relationships, right? But when you're looking for a true friendship, you want something that's uplifting. You need some people like how you described your friend that just thinks you are the best thing since sliced bread, right? Like, you need people like that in your circle. You need people in your circle that's going to hold you accountable. You need people in your circle that's going to inspire you. And so I think that's a well-rounded kind of circle that you need to have. And then also too, is to your point, what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of
Yeah.
person, how do you want to show up for other people? You want to be, and I love what you said, like, lift other people, right? Not make people feel small, not make people feel like they need to go back to school, or or make them feel like they're inadequate or they don't belong. You want to be the kind of person that makes people feel good about themselves, good where they are, but also to inspire them and to be a hookup, to open up doors, right? Like, what I have, I want Sydney to have, or who I
Mm-hmm.
know, I want Sydney to know, because I want to see Sydney flourish, right? I want to see him be better than me, because that's that makes me feel good to know that I'm associated with a black man who's a PhD, who's been, inducted into the Scholars Hall of Fame. Like, yo, I know him. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my guy. So I think that's important too when deciphering and deciding about friendships, and where do you want to go in life as well.
Is there any last comments or things that you would love to leave with our audience?
Man, I think pretty much what I just said, right? I think the word friend is thrown around loosely. And I think we should have our categories of different types of friends, right? And these are certain friends that I go to for this, or certain people that I associate with. These are people that I'm cool with. When
Mm-hmm.
it comes to a friend, I think it's somebody that you can be yourself, somebody that you can call on, somebody that you can talk to, somebody that you can lean on. If you're in the adult space and you're just graduated from college and you move to a new state, I think definitely knowing who you are and what you're interested in, and you want to look for friends and build relationships, put yourself in those spaces and places where you think that would cultivate those kind of relationships. And last but not least, if you're a person of faith and you're watching this, put everything to God in prayer. One of my
Wow.
prayers is always, God, lead me to the people you want me to be around, and then also lead the people that you want to be around me.
Wow.
And I've seen God do miracles. I've seen God answer that prayer, and I've seen where it's taken me in life. And also to lead me away from the people that you don't want in my circle anymore. And I think that's was a blueprint for success. And take your time and let it grow organically, and God will make a way.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kowlessar, for your willingness to share and be transparent about this whole idea of developing friendships and relationships. And so, what are some ways people can get in contact with you if they wanted to learn more from you and engage in social justice work or other things that you're doing?
Yo, yeah, for sure. Thanks, Sid. So if you want to get in contact with me, well, let me start first. My wife and I, we do a podcast. It's called Carlene plus Jamie. You can find us on YouTube and you can find us on Facebook. And if you want to get in contact with me, you can send an email to carleneplusjamie@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram. My Instagram is my name, Jaime underscore Kowlessar, as you'll see that it's up on the screen right now. Send me a DM, send me a message. I would love to interact and engage with you on anything regarding social justice, activism, and even marriage and navigating friendships and relationships. And so, man, I am so honored and pleased to have shared this space with you, Dr. Sidney. And man, shout out to you. Much prayer to you as you continue to do this awesome work for our community so that we can be better people to show up in this world.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jaime. And thank you to the audience for staying with us. And hopefully this program is something that will give you those skills that you need to enhance your friendships and build long-lasting relationships. And so until next time, have a blessed one.